The homily today is two parts. My first part is hopefully only going to be a couple minutes, and then Sue Swatowski is going to speak to us about our annual mission appeal for Our Lady of Guadalupe Church in Rutilio Grande, which is our sister parish here at Seton. If you've been around, you're well familiar with that. First on the scriptures, because people who interpret the Bible literally, remember that we Roman Catholics do not take the Bible literally. We don't look upon it as a book of science or a book of history. We look at it as a book of wisdom. But people who take the Bible literally, in other words, it just says what it says, will throw out in our face. Here it says, you're not to call anyone father. And we priests are known as fathers. But remember that Jesus is not objecting to using titles like father. You certainly you can call your dad father. Or what's the other one? Teachers. You can call your teacher a teacher. Or the other titles we use in society, like a judge is your honor, or lawyers are your counselor, and so on. What Jesus is getting at, the deeper meaning is that by using any of those titles, if you're implying that that person is God, then you may not use that word. So if any of you think by calling me Father that I'm God, let me tell you I'm not. You laugh too easily on that one. But I'm sure you get the message. Now, our fifth week in our 6-week message series about keys to the kingdom. Today we're concentrating on the human heart. And as I already indicated at the beginning, our human heart has, I'm picturing this visually, has a doorway. But the doorway can only be opened from the inside. Down in the office, in the bookcase, we have that famous painting of the little cottage, and Jesus is knocking at the door. But if you know the painting, I don't know who did it, you will notice that that doorway has no handle because it cannot be opened from the outside. It can only be opened from the inside. If you've ever been hurt by somebody, I'm talking about seriously, deeply hurt, the doorway of your heart is locked to them. And it would take a lot to get you to open your doorway to whatever that hurt might have been. Well, today we're imagining that Jesus is knocking on the doorway of our heart. Now, the doorway of our hearts for all of us are partially open. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. But the goal is to open them more and more to let God in through the ways of our Lord Jesus. And the way we do that is what he's talking about in the gospel. He's criticizing the Pharisees and the scribes because they don't practice what they preach. And that's a challenge I always think about in my life. Practice what you preach. How about you parents and godparents? How you form your children and grandchildren. You teach them, but do you do what you teach them? That's the challenge. To more and more open the doorway of our heart to let the ways of Jesus in. And the ways of Jesus are primarily charity, putting others ahead of ourselves. That's not easy. It goes against our basic instincts. It goes against human nature to put others ahead of ourselves. Now, we all do that, especially for our immediate families. But how far beyond the circle of our immediate families will we put the needs of others ahead of ourselves? And you don't need me to tell you that Jesus did it all for others, nothing for himself. That's the challenge. To more and more open the deadbolt of our hearts, to let Jesus in, and that will enable us to practice what we preach, to do what he asks of us as disciples.